Hello, my name is Daniel Evans, and this is the week 11 discussion assignment. It's the final video reflection since it'll be my 10th video reflection submission for sports economics. So here we go. First off, when it comes to franchise value, in our classes this week, I couldn't help but be reminded of how during this season the New York Giants began offering free Pepsis, like free cups of Pepsi, with every ticket bought, as a sign of desperation because who wants to see the Giants lose over and over again. So it's a sign of how poor their franchise value is that they've had to do this. I mean, most other teams that are bad don't have to say, hey, we'll give you free food to come watch us suck. So I feel like that's somewhat related to the lesson. Also, I'm pretty sure that I have a feeling that a lot of franchise value is probably related to revenues outside of actual sports that are connected to the franchise, like merchandise or how much, like possibly even like how much it's like reference, like anything related to copyright that's just not even sports related, just related to that franchise or stuff that like indirectly makes people want to buy stuff from that franchise, like say Cowboys merchandise in a film. Uh, these are probably indirect revenues that probably indirectly add to the franchise's value or might not even be counted, but they're still worth noting. Also, I've noticed that there's certain narratives in both professional and college football that come because of because of like there's sometimes stories of underdogs or things like that or Cinderella stories, and people are afraid, and some people, though the majority don't do this, some fans accuse like games of being rigged by the referees and the NFL in order to encourage these narratives. Of course, there's no evidence to ever usually prove this, but it is something to note, like how some people accuse the college football league of rigging things so that the narrative is that no group of five football team entered the playoffs. Although last season that was finally broken when Cincinnati joined, but also I think for the Deshaun Watson trade to Cleveland, I think it probably hurt their franchise value because Deshaun Watson, he's carrying a lot of legal baggage, and B, like the fact that they gave up so many trade picks, and also they wasted Baker Mayfield, who's not a bad quarterback, just not Tom Brady. I think it hurts their trade value from both the standpoint of how they look weaker. Like people are saying they're the factory of sadness again. That used to be their old nickname, but also from just getting Deshaun Watson, people like won't think as highly of the Browns now. Fans might leave, things like that. And hell, I think the Packers allow fans to invest in meaningless stocks because this adds to the franchise value, and like it makes fans like want to be part of the franchise more. And also when it comes to players' franchise value, I think that sometimes like what we think of, like we talked in class, their stats might not be good stats might not be reflected in their performance, whether it's their fault or whether it's their team not being good. Sorry, enough without them. That's up to your opinion. But like Kirk Cousins, for example, Vikings quarterback, great stats, but at the same time, even though he has a lot of stats, the Vikings have only gone to the playoffs once in his tenure. Also, like Aaron Rodgers has much better stats than Tom Brady, but you know how many Super Bowls Tom Brady has? 7 times as many as Aaron Rodgers. And I think the franchise tag, like the Packers tried franchise tagging Devontae Adams, even though he then went to the Raiders. I think that's an example of them trying to use part of their franchise value to like keep a player there, which in turn will let them hopefully preserve that franchise value. But as we saw with Devontae Adams, sometimes that doesn't always work. And I think a team's franchise value can have many effects. Like sometimes politicians view having a football team move to them as a popular move. Like the Houston Oilers moving from Houston to Tennessee in the 90s. Like the capital. I think it was to the capital of Tennessee. Yeah, the mayor there, like he probably saw the franchise value of a team like the Oilers, who a few years earlier had been to the playoffs, and thought that this would make him popular in an election. And to be fair, the Oilers really needed that move. But also, another thing we talked about in class, if I'm not mistaken, was ticket sales. And I think that one thing that's important for franchises, especially those like football, is making sure tickets are profitable but not too expensive. So that way you get a lot of money, but at the same time you don't scare away all the middle class and poorer fans. Make up like 90%, 95% of people who go to the games. Like when the Houston Oilers moved to Tennessee, initially tickets were too expensive, so most local people in Tennessee didn't want to go there. Only people who were rooting for other teams would come because they already spent a lot on plane rides and stuff like that. So yeah, so basically it's important to like balance it. Uh, anyways, my 4 questions are, first off, related to what I mentioned above, are college sports ticket sales a large reason in why colleges not only build up their teams, reputation to their students, like school pride and all that, but also why they encourage their students to watch major games, because it's probably a good way for them to get money back from students, even though, yeah, so it'd probably be a good way to like encourage students to pay a lot of money. Like my friend at Penn State, he spent like a few $100s on a seasonal ticket that let him watch all Penn State games during the year. Feel bad for him, but yeah, so that's probably a source of revenue. Also, is the large amount of variation of value between the most valuable and least valuable teams and franchises a main factor behind cap limits in football and other sports, but especially football? Because I remember that we talked about the cap limit and value of a team in class. Also, can a particularly good player on a sports team, as in their best player by far, Tom Brady, make up a disproportionate amount of the team's franchise value? Like, if the average player was 1% of a team's franchise value, would the Tom Brady of a team be like 20% of a franchise value? I mean, there can be no real numbers put onto it, but like that's just my example. Also, can a player develop high franchise value if they're iconic and or popular regardless of their quality? So in other words, can a player's franchise value be affected by more than just their sports performance? And I'm not just talking about like scandals, like other things about them, like Johnny Football on the Browns and Gardner Minshew on the Jaguars are both popular quarterbacks, like due to stuff other than their talent, because they're both mediocre at best. But Gardner Minshew is known for that mustache of his, and Johnny Football is just known for being that party guy. Like, he was good in college, but he was mainly known for being a party guy, and definitely not being a good quarterback. Anyways, those are my 4 discussion questions, and also that's my reflection on this week, and based on the 2 lectures. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good night.